Hi, ladies. Thank you for tuning in to the Tell the Truth on Your Identity docu-series. Today, we are here with Shanyi. She's going to tell us our story of identity, of truth, and kind of share a little bit about us as who she is. But without further ado, this is Shanyi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor and a pleasure to be with you today. I'm excited.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you here. This series has been going really well, so I'm excited to learn more about you and share your story with other people. Tell us a little bit about, who you are and where you're from.
Awesome. So I am a writer. I have my own blog. I'm a speaker. I have a podcast too. I call myself a serial entrepreneur. I have a couple of businesses. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. And most importantly, I'm a God girl. I definitely didn't coin that phrase. That phrase belongs to somebody else, but I borrowed it. It's from Nicole Walter. She's an awesome person. But I'm a God girl, which is the center of my being. I'm from the Bronx. I was born in the Bronx. We moved to Jersey when I was about 6 years old, and I lived between New Jersey and South Carolina until I went to college. My parents were divorced, so I went back and forth. But it was, in my age now, I realized how much of an actual blessing it was, because I have best of both worlds. I'm a Jersey girl to the T for sure. But I have like the best part of the South also ingrained in me. I'm not a Southern belle. That's definitely not. But I do have the best parts of the South ingrained in me also. So it might have been a blessing.
Great. Well, that's great. You're a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah.
So growing up and just your journey as like an entrepreneur and being from Jersey and just having different experiences, how do you feel like that shaped your identity as who you are today?
Well, how did growing up shape my identity? I grew up, I was born in the Bronx, so that's not like the best part of the city. I was born in the South Bronx. And I saw my dad work really, really hard. I think the biggest part of my childhood that shaped my identity is all of the experiences and the trauma that I went through. So I am a survivor of sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, verbal abuse. And for a long time, I didn't know who I was. Because when you go through those types of abuses, you don't know who you are. Your identity gets lost. And it's not until you heal from it, right, that you really begin to understand and know who you are. My parents did the best that they could, of course. But my childhood was a struggle. I definitely experienced a lot of things. And now in adulthood, I'm grateful for that, because that has made me who I am. And now I could speak to people who are going through that currently, or who have been through that, and let them know there's light at the end of the tunnel. There's something else on the other side of that, and that there is healing for you. So I would say that's how my childhood shaped me the most.
Yeah, well, that's beautiful. You're able to heal and kind of teach other women how to do the same. Throughout that healing process, what did that look like for you, and just trying to heal from the traumas that you experienced?
Therapy. It looks like it's therapy. Therapy. No, on a serious note, you can't heal from what you won't address. Like, in order for healing to begin, you have to attack it head on. And healing is a journey. It's not something that you just, okay, I'm healed from this one thing and I'm okay. It's a continuous journey. Becoming a whole person is a continuous journey. And you have to face the areas in which you are broken. You have to, one, realize you are broken. Two, face those areas. And you have to have a real conversation with yourself. And then you can begin to heal. And not only did I go to therapy, my faith is also, it keeps me grounded. It is why I am the way I am. It is by the grace of God that I'm still here, because I know I shouldn't be here, but it's solely by his grace that I am still here. And, you can love God, you could believe in Jesus Christ and go to therapy. Therapy is healing. It's good. And therapy helps you navigate healing, and it helps you navigate that journey of becoming whole. But you got to face it. If you don't face it, you can't heal from what you won't reveal.
Absolutely. I love that you mentioned having faith and going to therapy, that it's okay, because I think in the Black community, it's taboo, and we dwell in this space where you're just pray through it, and that's good. But we also have to do the work. Do you feel like that kind of played a role in just your experience in going to therapy?
Do I feel like what played a
Like,
role?
I guess, like, was there a shame with going to therapy because you also had your faith and like your relationship with God? They kind of combat one
Got you.
another.
Oh, my relationship with God was a little unconventional. I didn't grow up in a Christian household. Okay.
Okay.
So like I kind of had to go on my own journey. I was introduced to a family when I was about 11 in South Carolina who started to introduce me to God. But then once I got older, got to college, I had to go on my own kind of journey of faith and find who God was out, who he was for myself, right? And in our culture, therapy is taboo. And I wasn't okay with the idea of therapy at first, to be honest. It's not something because, it's like if you go to therapy, you're crazy. We put that label on it. Only crazy people go to therapy. We don't really talk about mental health. And then it was my faith that pushed me to therapy, because the closer that you get with God, the more he reveals to you the areas in which you are broken and you need healing. The God could do anything, but he gave us therapists for a reason. Mental health is real. And there are people who seriously have chemical imbalances inside of them and they need help. They may need medication, but there's nothing wrong with talking to somebody. I'm not going to say that God doesn't have the power to heal through prayer, because I know he does. But therapy, I feel like therapy and your faith go hand in hand.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily my faith that stopped me from going to therapy. It was more the culture that I grew up in and how we as African American people view therapy. My faith actually pushed me to therapy. God was literally like, you need to go see somebody.
Yeah.
Like, you need to go talk to somebody. And then I had other people around me who believed in therapy, who was like, you do need to go see somebody, and you need to heal from this. But it's like you have to get into an atmosphere where you could become so completely open so that you could begin to heal. And therapy was that atmosphere for me. I found a great therapist who's a Christian therapist, which made it even 10 times better. And she created this environment where I could become so open and so vulnerable about the deepest, darkest parts of me, only parts that God knew about. And that's how healing started.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Thank
Just
you.
like your faith is able to push you to go to therapy, because I think just having that motivation, that connection to God is what's going to help you do the work to go to therapy. When you were
That's
going
right.
through your healing process, how do you feel like your relationship with God played a part in that?
It was a lot of God and a lot of therapy. And it was God who would push me to go even when I didn't want to go, because it's not easy. You have to go and relive sort of the moments that happened, and reliving the sexual abuse that happened to me when I was 8 was really hard. But so like your brain has the ability to block out trauma, and your brain does it for survival. And I was in a church service. This was shortly after I had an accident. I was in a really bad car accident when I was 16. I almost died, but my grandmother did die, and I was temporarily paralyzed. So I lost the ability to walk for a little bit. And I was living in South Carolina, and I was a part of a youth ministry, and I was going to church, and the pastor preached a sermon. And in that sermon, he started to speak to me. It was like God was literally using him to speak to me, and he started talking about somebody being in service and having a sexual abuse when they were 8. And it wasn't until that service that it was like a flood of memories came back.
Wow.
And because I had blocked it out for so long. And it was like I would have dreams, but in my mind, they would just be dreams. It would be memories from maybe a TV show. I didn't realize how real it was until all of a sudden it was like I was in service, and the pastor was preaching, and it's like God was this floodgate just opened, and I started to remember everything that had happened. And if it wasn't for that, I don't know what else would have triggered the memories and then helps me realize that I needed to be whole. Because you may block a certain trauma out of your life, but your behavior can still be a result of a trauma, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I can have a broken relationship or not know how to have relationship with people because of a trauma that I experienced, or I don't know who I am and I'm struggling with anger and depression, and it's because of something that happened to me that I've pushed in the back of my mind that I don't even realize. And it was because of my faith. It was me being in church, and it was that sermon, and he opened that door, and that's when everything started to come back. But the best part about it was I was surrounded by people who were of the same faith, who were able to hold me up during that time. I was able to speak to my youth minister, and she helped guide me through. Now, I didn't start therapy until I was an adult. But if my faith, if I wasn't in that service and the memory didn't get triggered through that sermon, I know for a fact I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be the way I am today.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Just your story and your experience and coming to that realization, because I feel like even when you say, you block it out, it's almost like a coping mechanism to really like just be able to exist in the world without even acknowledging it. When you came to that realization and, okay, so now I know what I'm experiencing, what did it look like for you to go ahead and address all those issues as they came back up?
If I can be completely transparent, I do believe in transparency. I tried to push it back down.
Yeah.
Because I was experiencing so much. I had just survived an accident that should have killed me. It was my senior year in high school. I lost my grandmother. I couldn't walk. So there was a lot of things going on at that time, right? And I didn't want to deal with it. Yeah. I did not want to deal with it. And then there was a person who experienced the sexual abuse with me, and their parent called my mom and asked, and my mother asked me, I denied it. I was like, no, that didn't happen.
Wow.
Because I didn't have the tools that I needed to process it, right? Yes, I did, I was in church and I knew God, but my relationship with him wasn't what it is now. And it wasn't as strong as it is now. So it's like he gave me an introduction to it, and I pushed it away. Like, nah, that didn't happen to me. That's not real, And when you're in service, and when God was speaking through the pastor, it's like you could feel his spirit. And then I denied it. I was like, this didn't really happen to me. Yeah. Like, this is not real. And then the older I got, and the more I walked through life, and the more I experienced other things, it kept coming back. And it kept coming back. And it's like, something is wrong, but you can't put your hand on it. Yeah. And it affected my relationships with people. And I didn't even realize it at the time. Like, I was too young and too naive to really understand what I was going through at the time. And again, I didn't have the tools, So I didn't realize how much it was affecting how I behaved, what I did, the choices I made, the decisions I made, and the relationships that I was in.
Yeah.
So I don't think it wasn't until I was about 25 that I started to like really deal with what I had experienced and what I was going through.
Wow. How did you get to that place? How did you get to the place where you finally decided to accept that this is real, this is something I experienced, but now it's time to kind of address those things?
I was in church again.
Another church. Hey,
I will
show you for real.
Yes, God will show you. But this time I had my oldest daughter, and she was about 2. Was she 2? Yeah, she was 2. And I had moved out of New Jersey. I was in a really bad relationship. I had my daughter. I moved out of New Jersey and moved to Atlanta. And so I found a church home, and I was going to church out here, and the pastor preached a sermon about lying. Wow. And it wasn't like, like your habitual liar. It was lying to yourself about the truth of your life, and lying, how we in our African-American culture, we have the big elephants in the room that nobody wants to talk about. Yeah. Nobody wants to talk about the fact that Uncle Ray Ray was a pedophile, but we just said stay away from her. We didn't send him to jail. Nobody wants to talk about the issues surrounding the family, and it just perpetuates the cycle, this generational cycle. And the cycle doesn't stop until somebody stands up and says, hey, enough. And so she preached this sermon, and she said that we need to go home and we need to write. Some of us need to have conversations with our parents that, you know, we've been avoiding, and we need to tell them the truth, because you cannot heal from what you won't reveal. And so I took her advice, you know.
Yeah.
I went home, I got a notepad, I wrote a letter to my dad, and I said, these are things I need to talk to you about. And then I did the same thing with my mom. And that's when it hit me. Because this entire time, my parents didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
My parents didn't know that I was molested by my babysitter's husband until I was 25. Wow. And this happened when I was 8. And so, but we come from a culture where you don't talk about the elephants in the room.
Yeah.
You know, you don't talk about the things that happen. What happens in my house stays in my house. That's the narrative we've played. And that's why the cycles of abuse continue, because we don't talk about anything. And so it was another church service when I was 25. And, you know, I was probably the 3rd time in my life I saw my father cry, because he had no idea. Yeah. And then when I called my mom, I think I got a lot of this from her. You know, we tend to run from things that scare us, or run from things that we don't know how to deal with or handle. And so she didn't want to talk. She didn't want to continue the conversation anymore. But I think that was her pain. And I think a part of some of my parents at some point felt guilty for not protecting me and not knowing. But again, it was my faith. I was in the church service, and God was like, okay, it's time, like, let's go. Because, you know, when you have a purpose, everybody has purpose. If you're still breathing, you're still living, you have a purpose on this earth. There's something for you to do, right? And can God use broken people? Absolutely. But he wants you whole. And in order for you to be whole, you have to acknowledge the things that you've gone through. And if you keep hiding them and you keep pushing them back, you're just going to keep bringing them forward. Like, no, we need to deal with this. We need to deal with this. I need you to look at what happened. And, you know, for a time I was mad at God.
Yeah.
Because I was like, why did you let that happen to me? Like, why? Like, if you're good, right? Mm-hmm. Why would you let something so horrible happen to me? Why me? Of all the people in the world, why me? So my faith, it was my faith.
Hey, God is good. I tell you that. Even when you don't feel comfortable, I think the uncomfortable is good, because it is really going to mold us to be bigger than we should, or bigger than we think, to be in that purpose. And I love that you were saying about lying and how we lie to ourselves sometimes, because the whole title of this docuseries is Tell the Truth, because I think we lie so much, we cover up, and that's really where that came from, because I was in that place myself. I love when you speak about purpose. How do you feel like your purpose was molded out of your experience and healing and growing and telling that truth?
So I know that there are people assigned to me, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm still walking and developing, really, like, and understanding my full purpose. But one of my purposes is to break the cycles within my family. What happened to me, what I experienced, will not happen. I have 3 daughters. Oh. And so what happened to me and will never happen to my children. What I experienced and what I went through, my children will never have to experience, because I experienced it for them. And so their children are not going to have to experience it. And their children's children won't. The curse stops here with me. And I think a lot of my purpose is talking about it. Like, God gave me this voice. I have been, without even realizing, been speaking for a long time. And it's always been about something I've been through. I was a speaker for my baccalaureate when I graduated high school, and I spoke about my accident, and God, of course, was the center of my speech. And I didn't realize how long I had been writing and speaking. I wrote an essay in college that was published about my molestation called Don't Tell Daddy. And my teacher published it in one of our publications at Hampton. And so this whole time, God has been giving me little trickles of what I was supposed to be doing. And I paid no attention. This wasn't my plan. I went to school to be something completely different. My degree is in political science and business. Wow. And then I was in nursing school. Like, this is nothing to do with my plans, right? But So I know definitely one of my purposes is to break the generational curses on my family, the lying, the covering up of what, happened and what we experienced, and also the cycles of abuse. My father was abused. My mom was abused. Her mom was abused. And sometimes we don't recognize abuse because it's not a fist punch in the face.
Right.
But verbal abuse is real. Mental abuse is real. And those wounds go unseen and they last so much longer. A black eye is going to heal. But the brokenness that you experience from constantly being called out of your name or being told everything you aren't, that's a lifetime of damage. Speaking from somebody who's walked through it and experienced, and it took years to find out who I was, because for so long, other people told me who I was. And my purpose right now is to speak on it, is to reach those who are still hurting, to let them know that there is healing on the other side, that they're not the only person who's been through it, that you can get through it, and to stop it from my bloodline.
Yeah. You over here take me to church. Like, your
Girl.
voice is so powerful. Like, just the way that you share yourself and share your story with others. How do you, and using your purpose, how do you feel like you're able to help other women start their own healing journey, no matter what it was that they experienced?
I think by my voice. I think that the more we speak about it and the more we bring it to light, the more women feel okay to be vulnerable, right? They feel okay to share their stories, because especially in our culture is so big on what happens in my house stays in my house. Don't air out my dirty laundry. Even now, as much as I love and adore, I'm very big on family and I love and adore my family. All of them aren't really comfortable with my purpose and my journey and me speaking and writing on things that happen in my life experience, because they feel like I'm airing out our dirty laundry. But the more you hide it, the more you don't talk about it, the more it just continues to happen. So I want women to know, I want them to use their voice. That's one thing I feel like I grew up and didn't have a voice. And had I had a voice, it wouldn't have taken over a decade for my parents to know what happened to me. If I had a voice, they would have been able to know what happened to me while it was happening. And maybe they could have stopped it. So I want women, my purpose is to share my story so people don't feel alone, so people know that you can heal, and people know that you need to heal. Because I think a lot of people are broken and don't acknowledge the fact that they are broken. A lot of people don't want to walk on the journey to healing because it's painful. It's not easy. Reliving all of the things isn't easy. Remembering the things that you went through isn't easy. But you got to face it. So that's what I really think. So far, what's been real to me is is a part of what my purpose is, helping women. How I will be able to help women is by giving them a voice and letting them know that they're not alone.
Yeah, that's what we need, especially in the Black community. Like you said, our voices are hidden, and we don't feel comfortable speaking up because no one says, me too, or I
right.
know. With your voice healing others, and I know you spoke about your family and your parents. Do you feel like when your voice healed you and healed other women, that it kind of healed your parents as well?
Fortunately, no, not yet. I don't think my parents have gotten to the place of where they're ready. My parents come from the old school. They're an older generation. They were born in the era of the 50s. Okay. So what our generation is doing, I'm 34, I'll be 35 this year. So what our generation is doing is completely different from anything they've experienced. And my parents are from that generation where you don't talk about what you've gone through. And that's why, we don't know. I mean, even down to like the health, like your health. I remember going through a health scare with breast cancer, and I was trying to figure out how many women in my family had it. And my mom was like, oh, we didn't talk about that.
Wow.
And so they're still from that era. Now, do I think eventually God will use me, or God is using me to be the catalyst for change? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I see it now with my brother. I may not see it necessarily with my parents, but I see it now with my brother and how he's raising his girls. He's an amazing father, and he's doing it completely differently from how we were raised. And I think that that's one of the biggest things. But I do think that God will use me as a catalyst for change.
Yeah.
I
And
hope so.
how do you feel like you do it with your girls? Like, how do you influence them and impact them so they can continue to progress and not continue the cycle of pain?
Oh, I raised them so different from when I grew up. And it may sound a little rough to say, but I mean, I'm about being transparent and honest.
Absolutely.
So I am to my girls everything that I ever wanted and needed and didn't get.
Oh,
So they have a voice. I have created an atmosphere, and my goal is to continue to create an atmosphere, because as they get older, things change and hormones taking place. I have an 11-year-old right now, and she's driving crazy. um, so things change, but I've created an atmosphere where they are open to come tell me anything. We do things called talk time, open talk is what I call it.
yeah.
And they are allowed to come and tell me whatever they have to tell me, and they can't get in trouble for it. And they can express themselves in any way that makes them comfortable. I'm not a cursor. I don't use profanity. So my children, they learn stuff outside, of course. But even if they had to say, damn it or something, it's an atmosphere that they can say whatever they want and share whatever they want, and they will never get in trouble for anything they share. Even if they need to express how angry they are with me and how I'm such the worst mother in the world because I didn't let them do something. That's I gotta change it for them. If I don't want this cycle to continue, I have to be different. But in order for me to be different, I have to learn different.
Yeah.
I can't continue what my parents did because I don't want the same result, And they did the best that they could, and they did what they knew. I feel like something my therapist says to me all the time, one of the greatest gifts that God has given us is knowledge. And the ability to attain knowledge. And there's so much knowledge out here. So even if you don't know, say you've never had a good mom, or you've never had, you don't know who your father is, and you want to be that for your children, learn how to do it. It's a lot of the wisdom from the Holy Ghost, a lot of his patience, because my children, they can take you there. But it's also learning new ways, learning how to do new things, learning how to parent differently, and creating what you never had.
Yeah.
And that's my goal. I'm going to give them everything I wanted.
Yes, they're going to be some powerhouses.
Oh, yeah. I'm ready. I'm trying to teach them how to not powerhouse me. I got some strong.
Gotta put your foot down.
Yes.
What are some things that you feel like was there things that you feel like you had to unlearn and learn? What are some things that,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I definitely had to unlearn discipline. And then I had to learn a new way of discipline. I think our parents, there was a borderline, right? They were borderline abusive. Because listen, my mother will take her shoe off and knock me out in a minute. Yeah. And while, we'd be like, oh, we're fine, we survived. You can't do that today. Like, you go to jail today for that. So, but not just that, like, there were some mindsets I had to unlearn. Like that whole what happens in our house stays in our house. Children should be seen and not heard. I remember growing up, somebody had said, oh, kids don't go through anything. You guys don't go through anything. That's so false. Yeah. Especially in an era where children are committing suicide in elementary age. Yeah. So I had to unlearn a lot of thoughts, a lot of patterns. That children don't go through anything, that they should be seen and not heard. No, children should be heard because they're just as human as you are. I had to unlearn what disrespect really means, and are they talking back, or are they just sharing their voice? And why aren't they allowed to share their voice? Because they have feelings and emotions just like we do, because we're all human beings. I had to learn new ways I had to learn a lot of self-control. Right. And I had to learn that a lot of the times when you're disciplining out of frustration, and it's because you're frustrated. I had to learn what was normal for a child, especially I do have a child that has additional needs, I'll say. And so I'm learning an entire new way of how to handle her, because I've never experienced a child like that. But I had to learn, is this normal? Is this normal? Are you just acting how you're supposed to act? It's a lot of unlearning. I think one of the biggest things I had to unlearn, though, was also in my faith. When I wasn't raised in a Christian household, you know, we went to church on holidays. Um, that's when we went to church. But when I began my walk and I was first introduced to Christ through a teacher of mine, you know, I'm not going to say my mom prayed and, you know, like she taught us how to pray and stuff, but I was really, truly introduced to Christ through a teacher who happened to be a youth minister. And it was a Baptist church. They had a lot of rules.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I remember when one of my friends, who happened to be the pastor's daughter, got pregnant and she couldn't sing in the choir with us anymore. And I just didn't understand why. I'm like, why not? You know, and they were like, because, you know, she's pregnant and that's a sin. She's not married. I'm like, we all sin. I don't understand. So I had to unlearn a lot of things in my faith. And it wasn't until I was an adult and I began my own relationship, not one that somebody else gave me, but my own. And I unlearned a lot of thought patterns from the church too. And that also helped me raise my kids and it helped me grow and become whole.
I love that. Because, yeah, I think I grew up in the church myself. So it's just like seeing different people, how they have their relationships with God. You want to mimic that. And I think we all have our own individual like walks with God. What would you say to the woman who wants to seek God, or she has a relationship, but she wants to establish one for herself? How could she do that?
Spending time with him.
Yeah.
Like you have to spend time with him on your own terms, in your own way, for yourself. Because you cannot hear his voice if you don't spend time with him. You can't have a good relationship with somebody that you don't spend time with. And that's, I would say, through prayer. You know, meditate. It's okay for Christians to meditate. We're not meditating to Buddha, we're meditating to Christ. So it's okay. Reading, you know, finding a Bible that you can understand, that's understandable to you when you start, and then getting connected with people who are on the same walk you are on. But really, for me, it was, I got pregnant with my second daughter, and my husband and I were not married yet. And when I got pregnant with her, she was a NICU baby, and I experienced a little bit of church hurt, and so I kind of pulled away. My shame pulls me away from the church, from being pregnant again out of wedlock, because I'm like, you knew better. Like, you knew better and you should have done better, but you didn't. And so that shame pulled me away, but that was necessary, because at that moment, I needed my own relationship with God. And in that moment, I developed my own relationship with God, and I started praying and spending time in my word myself, trying to read and understand and gain knowledge myself. And you do that, you know, with the Holy Spirit, of course, but definitely spending time. If you want, and then my own relationship doesn't mean I don't connect with church.
Yeah.
It just means I have my own relationship, and then I still take my relationship and go with this community of people. I'm still led by a pastor. It's not traditional. You know, I'm an EFAM member, so I'm an online member. My home church is in North Carolina, and I live in Atlanta.
Hey, that's where I'm at.
But it's like, it is church in a way that I've never experienced it before. It is like, it's just God, and it is all inclusive, non-denominational. It's not rules, it's not religion, it's Jesus. And that's what I needed. But I still brought my own relationship, and then that connectivity helps me develop my relationship, because I don't know everything.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I would definitely say, for those women who are true, want their own relationship with Christ, you got to spend time with him, and you got to spend time in his word. Worship music helps me a lot too. Yeah, definitely.
Definitely got to get to know God and find your own ways to connect. I would also like to know, lastly, how do you own your identity every day?
Oh, by showing up.
Yeah.
And grace, I got to grace myself too. So like, okay, don't judge me, right? I'm one of those people who like have conversations with themselves in their head like all the time. Like, I'll be like, girl, stop. Girl, why don't you do that? Like, girl, go sit down. Like, I kind of, it's funny. Like, I give myself pep talks. I'm like, come on, you get through this. I give myself pep talks. I talk to myself. And it's interesting. If the Shanyi 2 years ago would have never done this interview because I wasn't owning my identity.
Yeah.
And it was my faith that gave me confidence to just own all of who I am. And that's all of my flaws, all of my imperfections, but also all of my strengths and all of my weaknesses. I can now confidently walk in who I am and not dim myself to make other people feel comfortable, which is what I did for so long. I fought with who everybody else wanted me to be versus who God kept calling me to be. And it was a constant battle because I wanted to be the perfect daughter and I wanted to be the perfect wife and I wanted to be the perfect sister. And I spent years trying to please everybody, not realizing that I was destroying who I was supposed to be. But it was because I began to develop a stronger relationship with Christ. And he was like, this is not who I'm calling you to. This is what they want you to be. But what I want you to be is something completely different. And in order for me to walk in that every day, because there are still moments where, my family might say something to me and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Or, maybe I shouldn't share so much, because they tell me I share too much of my life. And I'm like, well, that's kind of the purpose. But it takes a lot of me talking to God every day to own who I am. And those moments where I start to revert back and shrivel up and not boldly be who I am, I gotta lean on him more. And I have 3 daughters. I have 3 daughters who are looking at me walk this thing out. And I can't tell them to boldly be who you are and I not boldly be who I am. And, especially with my oldest daughter, because she's at a better level of understanding because she's a 5th grader and, she's getting ready to go into middle school. And what I've been preaching to her for the longest is like, just be who you are. And the people who are your people are going to love you exactly how you are.
Yeah.
And I started to realize that you got to walk the same way. Shania, you can't tell her to be who she is and you're afraid to be who you are. Because children, they listen to you, but they watch you more than they listen to you. Like my daughter, she's so awesome. She wanted to come for the interview. She's like, can I watch you? And I'm like, oh. That's my little hype girl. That is my little, but I think God uses my girls a lot to keep me grounded and to keep me on my path and to remind me, one, of his love for me. Because if I love them the way he loves me, oh man, I can't wrap my head around it. And then he uses them to remind me, I say it all the time, like they each have a specific purpose and they came to me at a specific point in my life. Even though I know what I did was to get them wasn't the right thing in a sense to do, they were never the mistake. God purposely gave them to me, and my oldest daughter saved my life. Because I still struggling with identity, right? I graduated college, didn't know who it was, didn't know what I was supposed to be doing, had a plan, didn't have a plan, went back, got back with an ex, and started walking in a way that I had no business walking. I started hanging out with people that I shouldn't have been hanging out with, and almost got myself locked up for for drug distribution. But because I was pregnant, I'm sorry, I'm a talker. I gotta quickly tell the story.
Tell us all.
I need people to know that, like, God loves you exactly who you are, even in your mistakes. So I graduated college and I didn't know what I wanted to do, right? I went to University of South Carolina in Columbia, but I also went to Hampton. But I graduated from University of South Carolina, Columbia, and I left and I came back home. Because when you don't know what to do, you go home. So I went back to Jersey with my dad. And my last year of college was rough. My mom and I had a really tumultuous relationship. We stopped speaking. I lost friendships, really bad breakup. Like I was a hot mess, okay? And so then when you don't know who you are and you're looking for love and you're looking for something because there's a void, you go back to what you know.
Yeah.
You shouldn't, but it's easy to go back to what you know. And my relationship with God was all over the place. Like I wasn't walking how I was supposed to walk. So I went back to Jersey and I started hanging out with my old friends. And, where we're from, it's people are really, what's the best way to say it? Where I'm from, People sell drugs. They hang out with drug dealers. My ex was a drug dealer. That's just kind of what we did. That's the atmosphere that was familiar to me because that's the atmosphere in which I was raised my entire life. So I got back with them, and then I got pregnant. And the relationship that I had started to go south. And I was supposed to go with my friend to do a drop, but I was pregnant and I wasn't feeling well. And something kept telling me not to go. And I remember my dad saying, because, you know, for whatever reason, my dad always knows when I'm doing something I'm not supposed to do. Like, he always knows. He's like, I don't know what you're doing, but I hope you know what you're doing. And he always has like this prophetic, wise way of saying things. And he was just like, always, he's like, you know, you're about to have a baby and you shouldn't be doing whatever it is you're about to go do. And so, I got sick. I was pregnant with my oldest daughter, and I was like, I'm not gonna go. I'm gonna, you know, and they tried to get me to come. I was like, nah, you go by yourself. And they went, and it was a setup, and they got locked up.
Wow.
And that was nothing but God.
That
was nothing but God. And after that moment, I was like, no, we're done. Right. You got a life. Like, there's a life. Like, you have somebody that you have to live for now. It ain't about you. So you can't do the things you used to do anymore. Yeah. And so I say all that to say, my children also have always helped me own my identity and to walk in that because they're watching me, they're depending on me, and I know I don't take it lightly that God gave them to me. I find it, the way I look at it, as a divine assignment, and I'm responsible for how they are going to be raised and who they are going to be in this world, and I got to do it right. Because if I fail them, I feel like I'm going to fail God. Like, he entrusted me with their lives. And a part of that is owning who I am and being the best example for them that I could be.
Yes. I love it. I just love like your vulnerability, your transparency, and just like your accountability to step up to the plate to what God is calling you to, and even your girls just to show up every single day. How can we continue to keep up with you and just hear your voice and get inspired on a daily on like social media and your website?
Okay, so it's Shanyi. My website is ShanyiRobinson.com. It has links to everything on ShanyiRobinson.com, but I also have a podcast. The podcast is The Modern Christian. It's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. You can hear it anywhere. All of my social media handles are Shanyi Robinson on Facebook, on Instagram, on the Twitter. They're all Shanyi Robinson. I try to keep it simple. Like, I just want to keep it simple. So yeah.
All across the board.
All across the board, Shanyi Robinson. And they will link you to anything else that I'm doing because I told you I'm a serial entrepreneur.
Hey, you gotta keep up.
Yeah. Shanyi Robinson is my home base for everything.
Great. And then what's one thing you want the ladies watching this to take away from the entire interview?
You are not your mistakes. Doesn't matter where you've been. Doesn't matter what you did. If you're still here, you have a purpose. God can use every piece of you and every piece of your story to do something amazing in this world. What happened to you is not your fault. It wasn't anything you did. You couldn't have changed it. It wasn't you. But your healing is your responsibility. You're responsible for your own healing. Nobody else can heal for you but you. It was wrong. I'm sorry it happened to you. I know it hurt, but there's somebody depending on you for your healing. You got somebody assigned to you and they need everything you have that's inside of you. So keep pushing.
That's good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for this. I'm just so excited to put this out there because this was such a great interview.
Thank you so much for having me. Can I just say thank you for doing this? Thank you for being vulnerable and for creating this atmosphere I've watched all of them, by the way. I've started to follow these women. So I just say, thank you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for creating this platform. You are such an amazing host. I love talking to you. You're so easy to talk to. Like, I was really nervous at first, but I'm like, oh, this is like having a conversation with my girlfriend. Listen, I can't wait to see what God is going to do through you, where he's going to take this. Like, I see it. Because I was I was praying over this, you know, I won't do anything without praying over it. And, you know, God kept saying, don't despise small beginnings. I don't know why that kept sticking with me, but it was don't despise small beginnings. This is going to go somewhere, girl. This is going to be big. You watch. You just watch.
So, pay for this platform, everything.
It's going to happen. You just wait. You just wait. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
Yes. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.